All right, exciting show for you today. Let's get into it. All right, so Jake Tapper is out there promoting his new book about how he pretends he didn't know that Biden was senile. And we had this extraordinary moment, unbelievable moment on Bill Maher's show. Let's have a listen.
Well, I think you're complimenting it by calling it a policy. Just not to talk about my book again, but one of the things we discovered when we did this book, Original Sin, me and Alex Thompson, is there's a senator, Senator Bennett from Colorado, who went to an event in June 2024 where Biden seemed non-functioning, and he left that event, and this is in the book, thinking this is why our border policy, our immigration policy is such a mess. This guy can't manage the portfolio. There are competing groups within the administration, and he's not engaged for whatever.
So he's saying that a sitting senator knew that Biden had lost the plot. This was early in the administration, and then he's claiming this. His claim is, well, that's not really a policy because Biden was out to lunch. Let's give him a little more airtime because this is quite remarkable.
Whatever reason, and that's why this policy is such a mess. And I know that the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, Mayorkas, he thought there was going to be an order early on in the Biden years, shutting down the border or at least providing more security, and the order never came. So people talk about what are the repercussions of.
Mayorkas was in front of the Senate multiple times saying that the border was fine.
Of Biden not being what we expect a president to be, just in terms of functioning 100% of the time. This is one of those things. So I think calling it a policy might be a little optimistic.
Honestly, it's not just Biden. I mean, I'm
calling it a policy might be too much of a compliment. In other words, the Biden administration was so out to lunch and nobody knew it at the time, even though the secretary was expecting changes. Oh, and by the way, somebody was setting policy, right? Whose policy was it to have open borders? So who was Biden taking orders? Who was giving out the orders? If it wasn't Biden, it was somebody who was giving the directives to be lax at the border. We know that it wasn't just like keep things as they're going. We know they specifically relaxed after Biden took over. But then right before the election, after that phony bill that they couldn't get passed, then they just did pass executive orders after executive order to close down the border. So it turns out they could. So what are they talking about? Do they realize what they're admitting to? They're admitting to that there was a shadow government, that Biden wasn't really the president. And these people were all in on it. This is a huge conspiracy. The last presidency didn't happen. The last presidency was stolen, not the presidential election that he won fair and square. But the last presidency was just completely stolen. We have no idea who was running the country. And then these people can tell us that Trump is a threat to democracy after they stole the last nation, and we don't even know who's responsible for it. And now he's coming out with a book like, who could have known? Who could have known? They ran Biden up until that disastrous debate performance. Everybody knew. People were saying, and it was right after the State of Union. Do you remember? Someone had his Wheaties. Looked like someone had his Wheaties. Look how great Biden is doing. And now we find out that senators knew. This has got to be the greatest conspiracy in American history. And we should not let anybody off the hook. All right, so Israel has now attacked Iran, has taken it on their own to attack their nuclear sites. Apparently, the Trump administration was in on this, and the whole negotiation was just a big ruse right at the end to make the Iranians think that Israel was not going to attack. This is kind of feels very like after the fact. I'm not sure how much the Americans are in the know, but they're definitely claiming they were. The attack seems to be quite profound, very successful, and is targeted the regime officials as well as the nuclear sites. And Iran is now, as of Friday, firing back. And so what do I make of this? So I've never actually been pro attacking the nuclear sites. I've never thought that it was possible to take it out. Obviously, I'm in the minority in the pro-Israel crowd about that. But I think that Israel is actually not. The primary goal is not destroying the nuclear capabilities, certainly setting them back. But I think that Israel is really after regime change. I think if you look at the fact that Israel attacked major military sites and major higher-ups in the Revolutionary Guards, I think that Israel is trying to topple the regime. And that actually makes a lot of sense to me, because as much as I think this is not a safe strategy, I think that is really what Israel is after, because the Iranian regime is a existential threat to Israel, not nuclear weapons. Certainly, nuclear weapons are a security for the Iranian regime, meaning they cannot be toppled if they have nukes. Certainly cannot be toppled externally. So that is the hedge. And that is why they're after nuclear bombs, which is the reason why everyone is after nuclear bombs. And so Israel really wants to destroy the legitimacy. And the best way to destroy the legitimacy of a regime is to humiliate them. And that's what's currently going on. And, whether I feel happy, whether I was pro striking Iran or not, it feels really, really great to see them smashed in the face. It really does. These sick ayatollahs with their funding of Hamas, with their cheering of October 7th, with their funding of the Houthis. And by the way, that, to me, though their funding of the Houthis was enough of a justification to strike Tehran, independent of the nuclear bomb. How can it be that Iran is just shutting down traffic in Israel? So I'm really happy to see them get punched in the face. I'm really happy for them to be humiliated, and we'll have to wait and see. But this cannot be over quickly, because Iran has to respond, and Israel has to keep going. So we're in for a long war over here, and this is a full war. This is going to be naval battles. There's not going to be a way for this to quieten down until one side is really smashed into submission. So, there's just no way for them to save face. In the previous altercations, Iran said this matter is closed, and each side claimed that the other side didn't really do damage, and fine. But there'll be no way to de-escalate this. So this is a big war, and the big question is, what will America do? If Iranians are not going to be stupid enough to attack American bases, will the Iranians view America intercepting bombs as complicity in the war? These are open questions. What will America supply Israel with? How much did America really know? These are all open questions, and we're going to see over the next few days. But like I said, I think that Israel is after the regime, and we'll see how that progresses. So if you've listened to this show, you know that I think that socialism is the most evil system ever devised, and I believe that because I think that socialism destroys freedom, quashes the human soul. I think it crushes the human soul. I think it destroys. I think no property rights, destroys the ability for people to thrive. And so I'm against socialism in all its forms. And that is why I find the idea of the minimum wage stupid and disgraceful. And the fact that a Republican, Josh Hawley, is supporting it does not make it any better. The minimum wage is nonsense. And how is it always presented? Well, they'll say it like this: everybody deserves to earn a minimum wage. Now let's talk about what bill they're trying to do. They're trying to make a federal minimum wage increase. It was $7 became $7 in 2009, all the way back when in Obama, and now it's $7. And now they want it to be $15. On its face, a federal minimum wage doesn't make any sense. How can it be that someone in Alabama automatically now has to double their costs, their labor costs, because of a federal bill? Does it make sense that a country that has such a wide range of cost of living should have a one federal minimum wage? So that in itself is stupid. The federal government should not be involved in this. But the idea of minimum wage is essentially the government stepping in between two willing participants and saying, you can't work for what he's offering you. And that is an affront to both of their freedoms. And minimum wage increases either end in less jobs, like we've seen in the fast food industry, where they've just replaced them with machines, or less companies, because certain labor is just not worth $15 an hour. Like let's say, and Matt Walsh brought this example, but it's such a fantastic example. Let's say I wanted to start a lemonade stand. So there is no profitable lemonade stand, paying the attendees $15 an hour. There are plenty of jobs that are not there. Are plenty of jobs that are not. I had jobs when I was a kid. They were fantastic. They did not pay me a living wage. I worked at camps. I worked as a counselor. I worked at a dried fruit store. I did not earn a living wage, and that's fine because I didn't need to earn a living. I needed to learn responsibility. I needed to earn pocket money. I needed to feel like I could do something. And those jobs were more, I think, were almost a favor from the employer, and I gained a lot from them. And the idea that now an employer has to every job has to have a set minimum, it's nonsense, and it's socialism. That's what it is. And when Republicans say it, it's still socialism. And we should just just call it what it is: un-American socialism. And there's no business in this country. All right, there is riots in LA again. That's right. Waymo cars are being called. Those are self-driving cars, only to be lit on fire. They're throwing cinder blocks at the police. And we're going to go to Karen Bass, the mayor of LA, to find out the cause of these riots. But before we do that, let's remind ourselves let's remind ourselves from the last crisis that LA experienced, the fires. Let's remind ourselves the brilliance of this.
Right now, if you need help, emergency information, resources, and shelter is available. All of this can be found at URL. Right now.
That's right. URL is where you can go. I guess everybody in California must have already these glasses. So as she's speaking, the correct URL, I guess, appears in their heads up vision, or she doesn't know what a URL is. Anyway, I'm sure she's going to have a very insightful take on the reasons for these protests. So let's have a listen.
Things began to be difficult on Friday.
Oh, okay, so she's telling us when things started getting out of hand. Let's find out why.
When raids took place, and it's important that I begin there.
Raids? What type of raids?
Because that is the cause of the problems that have happened in the city of Los Angeles and other cities. This was provoked by the White House. The reason why, we don't know. I posit that maybe we are part of a national experiment to determine how far the federal government can go in reaching in and taking over power from a governor, power from...
So she speculates because she can't understand why there were raids, because everything was peaceful in LA until the raids. Of course, everything is very peaceful in LA. That's why you can't go to Santa Monica without seeing people like addicts sleeping in the street. Everywhere you go in LA is just lawlessness. They lock down candy and soda. I'm saying it's gone totally out of hand. No, but things are peaceful, meaning, I guess, by peaceful, by meaning that people weren't putting graffiti all over the city and burning things in cars. So I guess that's more peaceful. Whatever she means by that. And then the raids came. What type of raids? Were these illegal raids? No. These were raids carried out by the federal government against illegal immigrants. Now, you may not like our immigration law, but we do have immigration law. And the people in this country voted for this policy. And if mob rule can win, if you can just have a policy, and then enough angry purple-headed protesters come, so we just cancel the policy, so you don't have a democracy. It is not democracy. You don't have the right to protest. You don't have the right to stand in the middle of the street. And by the way, people that are looting, I'm a libertarian. I believe in very little state. Certainly, I'm against all the prosecution for nonviolent crimes. Any victimless crime, I'm against prosecution for. I'm against all those laws. That being said, I think that if you see someone looting, they should just be shot. If someone's hurling cinder block at a police officer, they should be shot. How can they tolerate this nonsense? How can a city allow normal taxpayers to be blocked from going to work by these protesters? They don't have a right. There's no right to block people. There's no right to stop someone from earning a living. I believe in private property. All rights really stem from private property. If you're on a public street and you're blocking the street, then someone has a right to knock you over. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying, what is the person saying? You just have the right to block streets. We need to be tougher on these people. We saw this over the summer. People just defacing famous artwork because they have an erroneous view on climate change. Just throw them in jail for years, for decades. How can we tolerate this sort of nonsense? And so the Trump administration acted correctly in calling up the National Guard in the same way that President Johnson acted correctly when he called the National Guard to desegregate schools. If federal employees can't do their job, then they have to be protected. As simple as that. And it cannot be that you just allow 40 million people into this country and they just have veto power and them never going back because you make it too difficult. And that's why I don't agree with Ben Shapiro's take that they should just let California burn. Because either it's part of America or it isn't. Anyway, so as California keeps falling into lawlessness, and as idiots like Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom keep running to the ground, when will people from California, or Angelinos, as she says, realize that you cannot have a state of lawlessness? That you have these politicians who are just running into the ground. How long will you tolerate this stuff for? I don't understand it. Get rid of these people. Put someone in that knows how to run a city. When people are lighting fires outside, when people are lighting cars on fire, should be arrested and shot. What is going on? What is going on there? Anyway, people voted for this, and mob rule cannot succeed. And what are the Democrats? What are the Democrats thinking? How is this a winning issue for them? They're handing Trump a victory. If they wanted to protest, if they wanted immigration, they would go after the cases that slipped through the cracks. The single mother now whose husband was detained and who was just working as a landscaper. The family who's torn apart. The grandparents who can't see their grandkids. That would be the cases that they would go after. They're going after gangbangers, and now they're doing violent protests. And what's with the Mexican flag? Dude, if you are waving a Mexican flag in California to protest ICE, then just get the heck out of here. What is that? When did lefties become so anti-American? How can it be that you're protesting ICE by what? By saying that you're claiming this to be Mexico? The Trump administration has been trying to use the Invasion Act. And the Democrats said, what do you mean? This is not an invasion. And now this dude is just waving a Mexican flag. Are you insane? Are you insane? Do you think that works for your cause? This is it's just Palestinian flags and Mexican flags and kafirs and every single awful and socialism. Do you think you're making your cause more? I understand the Democrats these days. They're all crazy. All right, that'll do it for today, guys.